wasn't for them, I'll just be a dinosaur.
Trained by day, Kyle Wigington podcast by night, all day.
Randy Spidell.
Mm-hmm.
Randy Spidell. Is that how you say it?
So I usually say it's Spidell, like the town Slidell. That helps people.
Was that how it's pronounced, or like?
Yeah, it's Spidell.
Okay, you can correct me. You don't have to be like, well, I usually say it this way, but whatever.
I mean, as long as you don't call me an asshole, I'm not that picky about how my name is said. Randy, Randall.
Well, you know, that doesn't bother me though.
What?
I feel like someone can call me anything they want to, and I'm just like, okay. The reason I said that, I'm sure you're the same way, but I mean, it's just funny when people say that. I'm like, I don't give a shit what you call me. Like if we're having if we have substance to what we're saying, it doesn't matter like what you call me by.
Right, as long as you're addressing me with respect, I guess. Go wild.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for me is the respect factor. I can't stand when someone disrespects, not even just me. Like I'll handle your disrespect if I understand that it's gonna get me out of a situation. Right. You know what I mean? Like if we're on the street and someone's like, "Give me your fucking wallet, you pussy," I'm not gonna be like, "Why'd you disrespect me?" I'm gonna be like, just deal with it. But if you disrespect someone beneath you, that's where or disrespect someone for no reason. That's where I'm like, oh my God, I just want to eat you.
Yeah. I mean, it's usually symptomatic of, I don't know, having like self-esteem issues when you just have to lash out needlessly to other people.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's definitely some deep-rooted psychology shit. But you can't tell that to the person that's lashing out. I think physical violence is what they need. Right.
They need to be put in their place first before they can be reasoned with.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's either putting them in their place with words, persuasion if you can manage. If not, force. That's all some people understand.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think you can't rationalize with people?
I mean, I'm not saying you can, but I don't think you can rationalize on all subjects at all times with all people. I think everyone has that point where I don't know, like they have like things that aren't reconciled, like blind spots, if you will, in their personality, where they're going to be irrational and there's no amount of reasoning with them until they're ready, So sometimes, I don't know. So that's, the fight or flight moment where either they deal with it head on or they cower and retreat and
yeah, with the whole quarantine thing that happened this year, I started like diving into the brain the psychology of it all. And one of the things they were saying was that when you have someone in the fear mode all the time, that they actually stop thinking logically and they regress back to the lizard brain.
Yeah, reptilian.
So they're basically working off of that. It's the fight or flight mode. Yeah, they're on base functions, so they can't get into the higher cognitive level of, oh, maybe this person's right.
And I feel like since I've been a young man, most of American society has been, or at least our masters attempt to keep us in that state, with one, I don't know, in one form or another, whether it was the war on terror, nuclear weapons, COVID, and now Russia.
Do you think it's getting worse, or do you think it's just the same, but we're just like starting to notice more?
Is it getting worse?
I mean, they did shut down the country or the world, actually.
It's really tough to say. I mean,
it seems like here lately there's been one thing after another. And every time that one thing's gone, it's like, okay, what are we going to do next?
I guess for me, I would say it's getting worse because I don't feel like there was particularly a lot of pushback in the United States, versus all the measures.
It's so sad
that were put in place. And I feel like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, you can resist and mute, mutely and and just.
Why do you think there is no pushback? You think it has to do with them censoring? Because I mean, there's been a lot of like social medias that have been censored, and that's where a lot of people are getting their voice out there nowadays. So
I just think it's been a long time since we've had this kind of like existential crisis where we've had to reckon with what we're made out of. And maybe you had that in the 60s and 70s with the civil rights movement and the war in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's been a while, and I don't know. I don't think we have any training. I think we're so used to relying on other people to resolve those problems of those grandeur for us that we are out of practice. And so I think that's part of the reason why there wasn't very much pushback in the United States, because we're just so used to having life pretty damn good here, for things to go our way for the most part. And
well, that kind of is our training, right? Because our training happens in school. So, I mean, we're taught in school that when a problem occurs, you don't solve the problem. You go to the teacher, you go to the authority figure, and you go, hey, something's wrong. Right?
Yeah.
So then whenever we get into the real world and something goes wrong, we don't solve the problem.
We seek an expert or an authority figure.
Yeah. And like, who the fuck are these people? We don't know who they are, And experts.
It's only going to get worse, because we live in a highly specialized world, and it's only going to get worse, where there are very few jack of all trades of our of modern times. There are very few Renaissance men. Most people have a specialty, and then maybe a hobby, a passion. And that's about it. They have these islands of excellency, and that's about it. There's very few well-rounded jack of all trades sort of people. And so I don't know. I think the problem is already pretty serious, and it's only going to continue to get worse as we have like this compartmentalized, hyper compartmentalized society. And while that's probably always been the case to a certain extent, right, where society thrives on what they call the complementarity of skills, right? No one could be a specialist in everything. It's good to have like a baker, a butcher, someone who knows metallurgy and carpenter and et cetera, right? You need that complementary of skills. But I feel like I don't know. It's such a
you got to have a leader of those people. That's my thing. Is like, yes, you do have to, some people do have to specialize. They have to be perfect in their field, but the leader should be someone who is a Renaissance man.
I think there's the same could be said of all politicians. I think all politicians should be, I don't know, they should be well-rounded, right? I mean, whether it's in like,
what I say is crave knowledge. They should like crave an understanding and knowledge of the world.
Yeah, they should all be adept in philosophy, political science, the economy.
And you don't think that's the case anymore?
Oh God, no. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you. I just want to hear you say it.
We have our businessmen these days.
That's why they're all worth millions, because they're good. They're good at business.
Or ex-military.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know. I guess I would almost prefer someone who's in the military than someone who's a business leader.
Yeah, they would at least do the right thing, probably.
Right, because their heart may be in the right place. Mm-hmm. They went to the military to serve their country, and so they see they put their country's needs before them because they already have that habit, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're a business person, understandably, your number one interest is
make money,
is turning over dollars, making money. So, yeah, I mean, someone whose life has been spent in industry. Okay, they're gonna be a good organizer. They're gonna be a good administrator, and those are useful skills in politics. But it's not enough. Mm-hmm. It's not enough, and especially when you look at how much bleed through there is between like the private sector and the public sector, where there's the same people. They go back and forth, right, between the private sector and public sector. And those are things that used to like alarm us in the past, like, oh, this person has a conflict of interest. Nowadays, we go, oh, well, they have experience in this realm, in this domain, so they're perfect for this cabinet position or what have you, because they have experience in that domain. And we just kind of gloss over the fact that they have a conflict of interest now. So it's a pretty dire state. But anyway, back to the point. Yeah, I would love to. I think politicians, they should ideally be Renaissance men.
Yeah. So, do you feel like? Because there have to be some Renaissance men in this world. Do you feel like they're just getting pushed to the side, or do you feel like they just?
I don't know. I mean, you have to. What's their place in the world? They don't
really fit in this world, do they?
The world doesn't really call for those kinds of people. The people who dabble, who try a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like I have friends like that, like travelers, for example, who they try to find themselves before they give back, right? They try different trades, they try different countries, and and by the time they figure themselves out, it might be too late for them to get I don't know, a kind of position in the world that's
yeah, because they don't have
that recognizes their value.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of being a politician is image. So I mean,
yeah,
I feel like a lot of the people that actually find themselves, they don't really care about image anymore. So it's more about let me do the right thing over let me look the certain way.
Right.
And we have such a materialistic society that people want the person that looks right over the person that does the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't have, all that money saved up from like stacking bread from day one or from like, generational wealth, I think a lot of those politicians, some of them might not even have wealth when they go in, but they're controllable. So private, interest groups can control the politician with money.
And that's another thing that I feel, unfortunately, attracts people to politics, as I see it as a way to really make, not to make a difference, but to make themselves incredibly wealthy
And it obviously worked because, I mean, if you look at the financial reports of all the politicians, they're doing pretty good. Like they don't even understand what it is to be a regular human. That's what I noticed during the quarantine stuff when they were like, yeah, we'll shut down businesses and, we'll give the restaurant workers, I don't know, $1,000 a week. And it's like, what? It's like, do you understand that's more money than they fucking, that a lot of them make at those places? Like they have no clue.
That and when you look at a lot of countries that, including our own, where they would put, as part of like this like emergency relief package, a pandemic relief package, which included, stimulus money, but it also included loans to small businesses. It's a solution. There really isn't one. It's a trap because, okay, we've closed down, we've locked things down. We made it impossible for you to run your business profitably, but here's a loan. And now you're going to be further in debt, enslaved and chained for God knows how many years. And you'll never,
I wonder if they forgave any of those. Cause I mean, they were supposed to forgive some, right? Weren't they?
I haven't caught wind of any of that.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised of that.
We didn't end up taking any loans here. We just, shut the business down and reopened.
But it's so funny seeing like this, the offer of loans as being like, a solution. And like in France, for example, I've seen like Macron, who's running against Marine Le Pen today. Actually, it's the second round of the presidential election there. So we'll find out at the end of the day who's the new president. But anyway, it's funny to see Macron and his party, his cronies, his party, for example, basically pat themselves on the back for giving loans to small businesses to help them throughout the crisis. When it's like, you close things down.
Yeah.
You put them in a state where they become beggars.
You created the problem.
And you created a problem that was disguised as a solution, and you want people to vote for you and thank you as a result. It's madness. That's
like psychology 101 when it comes to politics is you create a problem and you have the only solution for the problem.
I mean, to me, it feels like I hate to use the word toxic because it's so overused, but it reminds me of a toxic abusive relationship, right? Where
it's a parasite.
Where you beat someone down emotionally, physically, and then you somehow convince them that you're the only one for them.
It's exactly.
They can't live without you. And
a lot of people, I wonder if people can even see that. Because like sometimes I chat with people about these things and it's like they don't have a clue that's going on. And I'm like, are we living in the same world? Like, 'cause it's so obvious to me that like what's going on, but I don't know if people just choose to ignore it or
because it's a hell of a lot easier to ignore what's going on. My God,
because face the truth.
It's so ugly. We're not in Ukraine. We're not suffering. Bombardments and artillery attacks.
But you don't even know if that stuff's true anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it's not true, but at the same time, it's hard to believe a lot of stuff when there's so much fake news out there. So, I mean, I'm looking at the stuff that's going on in like Shanghai, and it's like, is that really happening? The lockdowns and stuff. Like, who knows what's real anymore? That's why I just try to focus on what's around me. And like trying to improve the world that way.
I've come to the point with like incoming information, right? Mm-hmm. And I try to pick, I try not to cherry pick information. I try to take it from all sides. But even still, I put all that information in a waiting room where I withhold judgment as long as possible. I try to anyway. I try to be rational, but I put everything in a waiting room, knowing that with all the agendas at play, that any of that information could end up being false at some point.
Yeah.
Or just a flat out lie. So it's really tough. You have to have a really hyper critical nature these days to be able to make heads or tail what the hell's happening.
Dude, I think even if I'm a hypercritical person when it comes to like thinking through problems and stuff, but there are certain things that there's no way. Like a big debate is the flat earth, round earth debate, right? And you laugh because you're probably like, it's not really a debate, but like no one really knows unless you actually see it from space. We watched a debate on it the other night. And this debate was really fucking good, but this is why it's so crazy is because both sides had these arguments that were believable. So it's like, who's really telling the truth, Like literally they were both just like, if there was something that I was taught in school, I'd be like, I believe that.
Right. But okay. I mean, yeah, unless you're an astronaut, you can't observe the Earth and see its shape. But I mean, you could, as an amateur astronomer, have a nice telescope and see other planets and see that their form is also. But
there are arguments for that. Yeah. I'm telling you, dude, like someone has sit down and thought out all this shit. Like there's arguments for flat Earth, for round Earth. There's arguments for the cosmic egg of Earth. What are there's like 10 different debates on this, and they're all valid arguments. I've looked them all up too. So I'm kind of the same way you are, where I'm reserving judgment, but the world has to change. Like there has to be truth. Like we can't live in a world that's just constant chaos.
No, it's but
you can't get ahead.
Not healthy and it's not natural. I feel like everything tends towards order, towards a greater and greater order. And
it clearly seems like we're going the wrong way here, doesn't it? Because like here's my thing about like why you can't have 10 different theories. In order for science to build on itself, there has to be the truth. Like we have to know that the earth is round, or the earth is flat, whatever it is, and it's electromagnets, whatever. But you need to know that in order to build the next foundation of.
Right.
So the way we're at right now, we're just basically we're stagnant. There's no getting ahead.
Do you think it's a stagnancy based on a need to verify or re-verify already existing theories and sciences as they are before continuing to build on? Or
yeah, say it again.
Do you think the stagnancy comes from the fact that there is so much like,
oh yeah, this unknown.
There's so many new currents in science or pseudoscience or what have you that there's a kind of calling into question of currently existing theories that are preventing us from advancing because we want to verify and consolidate what we know first before.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think with the amount of theories that are out there and the amount of like ones that sound good, the amount of disinformation and misinformation, that it's impossible to lay down a foundation to build on. Yeah, it's like taking a bunch of cracked pieces and putting that down as a foundation. Like you never know where the foundation is going to break.
But I suppose even as a scientist, and anyone's free to disagree with this, and a statement will certainly cause some to roll their eyes. But I would think that even as a scientist, at some point you have to take a leap of faith.
It's a scientific method. Yeah, you're right.
Take a leap of faith and trust that the hunch you have, the road you're on is the right road, and you're just going to go forward anyway. And knowing very well that down the road there may be further information available that wasn't available in your era that might disprove or confirm what you're already studying. So I think even scientists need to have a leap of faith and trust. So trust their hunch, like a detective, going forward with their studies.
Yeah, that's happened several times. I'm sure more than several times, but it's happened like a lot through the years. And this is where we got better technology and we could see, deeper into the cells or things like that. But I feel like we should know certain answers now. There should be a valid truth to if the earth is round or not. You know, that's like one of those things where if we really are in fucking space, then we should all know that there's a truth. But the corruption that's in our society is so that there is no way to tell. There's no truth. You know what I mean? Like if we could trust each other, then we could trust the information that's out there. But the fact that there's 10 different theories and they all sound great is a problem.
And I suppose, you know, maybe there's, I don't know, again with agendas and intentions, maybe, you know.
Well, the agenda's confusion, right? That's what they want to do. They want to keep people confused.
Yeah, I mean, it creates another kind of crisis, right? Like there's already a myriad of identity crises, but now with information being, you know, so I don't know, so flaky and untrustworthy, that creates an information crisis, right? Like, what can you believe? Can you know anything? And in a way, I mean, maybe that'll cause people to either tune out or cause them to burn out if they do try to get anywhere, you know, in their particular quest for, you know, for knowledge or.
Well, it causes them to not focus on the real problems. So for instance, the other night in that debate we were watching, that was like 20 or 30 people there. And the two guys that were debating were very intelligent people. But we were fucking debating flat earth, round earth, when we should be debating or coming up with ideas on how to correct things in the world.
Right. So you see that whole debate in and of itself as a distraction.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of false debates, false issues out there, non-issues, I usually call them, non-issues that are designed specifically to dissipate good human resources, right? Natural energies, so that they don't go to worthy ends.
Well, that's also why the Renaissance men don't really work out in this world, because
you think they get sidetracked?
I think they get sidetracked. I think life has become so it's complicated, yes, but there's just so many little things that people have to focus on that they can't dive into the deeper aspects of life. So I was talking to the comedian earlier, Heidi, and we were talking about like DMV. I was like, there's no reason the DMV should take 8 fucking hours to get through there. You know what I mean? Like we are a very advanced society. That should be a thing where you streamline it. You shouldn't have to go there and you shouldn't have to, plan out your week to go to the DMV. You know what I mean?
You're right. What's funny is I this is the last day of my spring break, and one of the goals I set for myself was to go to the DMV and finally get a Louisiana driver's license. Yeah. And guess what? Guess what didn't happen?
You're podcasting.
I'm podcasting. I didn't go.
Yeah.
I did everything but that because I did, like you said, I don't want to waste 8 hours.
So. I got a secret for you. I'll tell you whenever we finish. Okay. It's a secret DMV. The first time that I went here in New Orleans, it was insane, dude. Like I took a book there and I was the first one to get there. I was trying to get there first. I was trying to get there when the doors open. There was already a line out the fucking door. And I was like, well, this isn't good. So I ended up getting in there and I take my ticket. I was there for 8 hours. Like when I was going through the line, like I got up to the desk and they were like, okay, we're not taking anyone else. I was there all day.
Whoa, so you didn't actually get any service?
No, I did. So I did get service. I was the last one they took in that day, okay. Luckily.
Wow.
Yeah, but there were people there that left. They were there all day long and they left because they couldn't get through. I can't even.
It's inhumane.
Dude, it's so ridiculous. But it's the system's designed that way for a reason, because it keeps you occupied on menial things rather than focusing on accruing the knowledge for the big picture, right, or focusing on solving the big problems.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we whittle away our lives needlessly all the time with little things, little distractions, and life has a way of sexing them up too. The little things that we really shouldn't be paying any mind to. But
like what?
I mean, TV, movies,
which is also part sports. Of the design system, right? Like the Coliseum type situation with sports, keep people focused on this. They don't focus on the real problems.
And in New Orleans, I mean, you couldn't pick a better place to have this kind of conversation because there's distractions every day. There's always something going on, and you have to ask yourself at some point: is everything that goddamn interesting? It's impossible.
Yeah, I've done it once. I'm done. That's my mentality on it, dude. Like I I don't like redundant things. I think that's why I like to explore different like areas of knowledge too, because I need something interesting to stimulate my mind. When I used to like playing sports, but when it comes to watching it, I was like, this isn't that fun.
Yeah. I went through the same falling out with sports where at some point, I mean, I'm talking early 20s, I just stopped watching it, even though I kept participating.
Yeah. What was your reason? Was it the same kind of thing?
I don't know. I don't think I had a good reason for it. I just kind of maybe on an instinctive level understood the meaning, like the meaningless of it, or I don't know. And I checked out. I mean, I've almost always been physically active, so I understand the importance of that. I see that as having like just like undeniable intrinsic value, taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But it demands a lot to follow, like to follow a team or a player, to keep up. I mean, a season is long.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of games and there's a lot of stats and there's a lot of like.
So I have a thread with my buddies from back home, and just the amount of like sports, like trivia knowledge and stuff they have every single season about stats from players and where players are transferring to different teams. I'm like, how, like if you just took that, like that little bit of time that you spent doing all this and like aimed it towards something else,
right?
You could change the world, man. But I mean, they
even if you just spent that time, like imagine you had a piece of land, right? And you made a goal to build a house from scratch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or I don't know, or research cancer or something on your free time. You know, there's a lot of better uses we could
aim that at.
We could aim that at. You know, can you imagine if all of humanity just decided that, you know, beyond practicing sports for the undeniable intrinsic value of taking care of yourself, if we all just then use that extra time to
there was
to work on things that
it was like an engineer or something, and maybe a scientist, somebody was, but he was saying something one day that was so profound. He's like, if the entire world focused on, he said like three different areas. I think it was like science, engineering, and mathematics, maybe. He's like, we could solve all the world's problems in 10 years. If you could get the entire world to focus on those things instead of like being just everywhere else. Mm-hmm. But if you get them to actually focus and like, enjoy learning
and even enjoy work.
Yeah.
That's another problem too. I mean, and maybe that just for me, I can only speak personally, or I can't speak for everyone, but like, you know, I feel like a lot of people I grew up around me, you know, always had a kind of like negative or pejorative attitude of even just about work. Right. Mm-hmm. And I get it if you're doing work that is, you know, that doesn't mean anything for you, right? If you're just a cog, I understand.
That's most jobs too, right?
I understand having disparaging, and it is most jobs. I understand having a disparaging attitude towards that, but there's, I don't know, but work in and of itself, I mean, you know, it can be a beautiful thing, especially if you're doing something that you like, or even if you're not doing something that you like, but you're working towards doing something that you know you're going to like. Even that, we should be able to find more joy in. Like, I don't like what I'm doing now, but what I'm doing is allowing me to pay for school, or allowing me to finance a pet project, a startup company. I don't know, but so
yeah, that's what I've noticed. Looking back at like guys that were from my hometown and stuff. Some of them, they didn't have a goal in mind. So what they do is they would graduate from high school and they would just go get a job in a factory, and they would just start drinking or consuming substances, and they would, you know, I hate my life. And it's like, well, yeah, because you're not aiming at something. Like if you had a goal and you went home every day after you got off of your factory job and you started learning towards that goal, then eventually you would get out of that factory job and you would start working for yourself, and then you would enjoy it even more.
Right. Because if you make the goal just to be comfortable, just to make ends meet, or even then some, right? Because some factory jobs can pay really well. Mm-hmm. If that's your goal, yeah, you're going to find out very quickly that there's a lot missing in your life if you're just working for money.
Well, then they try to like supplement that with a woman, and the woman, you know, have a kid.
Yeah, with a lot of the trappings of ordinary.
And then they're locked society. into working in a job to support a family,
or to support their
bad habits.
that their habits or their material possessions that they thought could kind of plug up those holes, right?
Yeah.
And
it's like
in their life that is, that isn't meaningful enough for them. So they get indebted because of, I don't know, big TV or car or.
So it sounds to me like the big issue here is education. Like people don't have the correct education to understand these situations before they get trapped in the system.
Yeah. I mean, education is always going to be a ticklish subject because everyone has their own idea of what it's supposed to look like.
I feel like you have a professional opinion on this. Randy is an educator.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've, been an obsessed self-educator for so many years. I suppose it was natural that I would fall into being an educator at some point.
But do you think that hinders your outlook on the situation because you have such a you seek out knowledge where there's a lot of people that don't seek out knowledge?
No, I don't think it hinders me. I think if anything, it helps me. It helps my approach to teaching others, and that I can't be alone in thinking this as an educator, that what you want when you teach someone is to put them on the path to autonomous learning, where the sooner they can learn without a teacher, the better. Mm. And while that doesn't apply for all things, certainly as a skill becomes highly specialized, if surgery, for example, or medicine, yeah, you're going to need other teachers, but you want to set kids on the path to autonomy. So having most of my life learned autonomously, I feel like for all I've read in my life, for all I've studied, I should have, I don't know how many BAs, how many bachelor degrees. The only one I have is in French. But no,
that's a problem too. Like, whenever, because I noticed that people, they'll ask you like, oh, what's your degree in?
Yeah.
It's like, well, my degree's in this, but it has nothing to do with what I know. You know, like everyone thinks you need certifications to know something. It's like, no, you just need to figure out how to learn. And that's kind of what you're saying is like, and we all learn a little bit differently. I'm sure. For me, I like to go and look at like infographics. I feel like I can reverse engineer the infographics, and then like somehow my brain just like understands it after that. But when it comes to reading, dude, I'm a bad reader. Like that was one of the habits I picked up this year, is I wanted to start reading again. And I've already read one book, but I'm only good for like 5 pages a day.
Whatever.
Yeah, it compounds on itself. It's like you were saying with the house analogy. Like if you put like 5 boards up a day,
5 bricks,
eventually you're going to have a house, you know?
Yeah. No, but I mean, knowing you, you have other ways of learning too. I don't know.
Talking to you.
You're kind of like antiquity philosopher who would learn a lot from debate and discussion and not necessarily from what you read. Your learning is kind of, like active, like spontaneous and active. Like you make things happen. You make lessons happen when you pose the provocative questions that you do to people. You're not only like stimulating them, but you're stimulating yourself at the same time. So you have a very, you have a very particular way of learning, and it's. I wouldn't knock yourself, even though it's 5 pages a day, because reading as a form of learning can also be a hindrance if you let it overwhelm you and dominate you. That can be a bad habit like any other.
It's a good point. Yeah. So, especially if you're reading the wrong stuff too. I feel like a lot of people, when they read to escape. So they read like stories and things like that. Like my example is my mother, for instance. She is an avid reader. She reads like every day, every night. She's an English teacher, right? So it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But she only reads like stories.
Okay, so just purely fiction.
Yeah, purely fiction. Yeah. If she could like take that skill and use it for, maybe like every 3rd book or something, read psychology book, I don't know, whatever interests her, like it might be more helpful.
No,
because like you're saying, a consumer with just the consuming the stories, it's kind of the same thing as just watching TV all day, right?
Right. And I guess where I stand as an avid reader myself is I have a kind of utilitarian outlook on it now. Whereas I went through a period where I was reading nothing but fiction, right, for years. So it was like after I'd stopped being politically engaged, that's another story. I kind of fell into fiction and spent years there. It took me a long time, honestly.
Are you reading it in French though?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Okay.
But no, I was reading fiction. I mean, just exclusively for a long time. It took me a long time to kind of come back to reality and then get interested in philosophy and antiquity. And so but anyway, my point is like nowadays I try to have a kind of utilitarian approach to it. Not that there's always a very clear cut logic about what I'm reading, but because I'm also a writer, so what I read usually has some kind of connection with what I'm writing. So
it's kind of like research, right?
It is in a way. It's like research, and I try to let my instinct guide me. And having read for as long as I have, I feel like I have a pretty good grip on where I need to go, right? Mm-hmm. Like what blind spots do I have?
Yeah.
And
that comes from understanding yourself, right?
Yeah. That takes and that's it's never ending work.
Right.
You know, if you're really dedicated to knowing yourself and to exploring all aspects of yourself, it's never ending work. But I have to, like, maybe I'm speaking too soon, but if I go into a bookstore, if I'm shopping online or what have you, like there's certain areas I'm just not going to go in because I just feel like it's too late,
Like what?
Well, I mean, like some of the trades or fields you talked about earlier, right? Like the science, engineering, visual arts, art. I mean, there's certain worlds where it's just like,
there's so many.
It's not a part of my nature, and I don't see that ever becoming a part of my nature. And that doesn't mean that I don't see the value in those fields, but I know that they're so far removed,
right, that
I would be a kind of dilettante, right? Like I would be just like a buffet style intellectual, a little picking here, picking there,
So you wouldn't have a full understanding of the subject anyways.
That's the thing. I wouldn't have a full understanding. I would just be grazing, and I just turned 39. I'll be 40 next year. I know my years are limited, so I try to use my time wisely.
It's a good point.
So
yeah, no, if more people like thought that way, the world would be a different place too. Like if they took their time seriously,
because it goes so damn fast.
Yeah,
it goes so fast.
People, take your time seriously. Like, don't just go out and party every weekend. Be diligent of what you put it into.
Yeah, and
and who you give it to.
Yeah, I mean, and you and I, we're in a city where, it's YOLO all the time.
Yeah.
Work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. That old mantra, but I don't think you can do both hard. I don't think you can.
No, I say if you're coming to New Orleans, if you're fixing to move to New Orleans, the first 2 years you're here, fucking go hard. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying go real hard. Like do everything you can. Yeah. Burn yourself out. That's kind of, I didn't go that hard, but I went hard for me, which is like a beer, I'm pretty lightweight. But those first few years I bartended on Bourbon Street and I got it all out of my system.
Right. So then you don't have any regrets. You've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good advice for anyone coming to New Orleans.
Yeah. So what are you reading right now?
Oh man, I'm reading an amazing book. I was completely buried, immersed in it yesterday. It's called The Human Zoo by Desmond Morris. Mm. And how I even got set on the path to reading that book is interesting. And I almost hesitate to say it because I don't want to put anyone off the book. But anyway, so I'm not going to say it.
Oh, come on, really? Dude, that's the only reason I read books is when an interesting story brings it into my life.
Okay. Well, I'll lay it out there. Because I'm not going to, reading should never be censored. But anyway, I was when I had friends in town recently, we did a tour of a place I've never been to before, the Museum of Death in the French Quarter. And, there's a lot of gruesome artifacts there.
And I've never had a penchant for, the gory. So I was more interested in like the psychological aspect of the artifacts, namely the letters, right, from serial killers or what have you. And one of the most interesting letters I read was one from Ted Kaczynski to I don't know who on the outside of the prison, right? And he was giving them reading recommendations. And since nothing's off limits for me in the world of, of knowledge, unless it's like I said, so far removed that it doesn't have anything of great import to offer me, that's like useful. Anyway, so his number one recommendation was Human Zoo by Desmond Morris. And I thought, okay, well, because I wasn't looking necessarily to get a window into his mind. All I know about Kaczynski is that he was, a highly educated,
He was the bomber guy?
Unabomber. Yeah. So he was a highly intelligent individual, perhaps too much so.
Yeah.
So anyway, I started that book yesterday.
Why would you not tell that story? Because that makes me want to read the book. Like when I first heard the title of it, I was like, yeah, whatever. But now that Ted Kaczynski is your recommendation for it, like, dude, I want to know, because I do want to know inside of his mind.
Well, people judge so quickly, and it doesn't take much to dissuade or discourage people.
They can judge the hell out of me. I don't care.
Whether people are afraid of certain subjects, I try to be more brazen and go on and read. So, but that said, I don't feel like Kaczynski's recommendation does a disservice to this book, because it's basically a fantastic thesis. And the thesis is essentially that modern cities, right, huge conglomerations, metropolitan areas, are not like a concrete jungle, but more like a human zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And Desmond Morris was a zoologist. And so he started to develop this theory that humans in cities behave like animals caged in zoos based on his observations of animals. And so it's a very naturalistic study of human society, especially in what he would call impersonal societies, right? Because traditional societies, everyone knew each other. They were personal, right? Whether they were tribes or even villages, everyone knew each other. And at some point, there's a transition to an impersonal society where you're supposed to feel like you're in league with people you don't even know. And so that's where you start to have all sorts of, pathologies that become, nowadays are normal to us, but, things that like warning signs that something's wrong. And so he looks at basically, we've gone from being in tribes to and I'm reading the French version, so maybe he uses a different word in English, but super tribes, or like mega tribes now. And so anyway, so this whole book is a kind of analysis of what are the implications of that, right? If we're, people lost in an enormous tribe, because we're tribal by nature. That's another one of his driving, I guess, theories, that kind of underpins his theory.
Makes sense.
Is that we're tribal by nature, and we are always going to seek a kind of cohesion in a tribe-like setting, especially nowadays where we're in this massive tribe, whether it's like the tribe of New Orleans, the tribe of Louisiana, the tribe of the United States, right? So we're going to seek like subgroups, sub-tribes in which we can genuinely feel a kind of, connectedness, cohesion, and also a tribe then that we can climb to the top of, because that's also one of our, and this is kind of Nietzschean, I think, in his philosophy too. And that's another reason why I'm particularly fond of this book, is that there's also that power drive, right? That will to have power.
Mm-hmm.
That's also part of the human nature, besides being tribalistic in nature, but also the will to power. And so he sees that as being is one of the purposes of having like subgroups, right? Whether it's like, a club, right? It could be a bowling club, a book club, a softball league.
It could also be a distraction.
Yeah.
Because it takes the alphas.
And he talks about that too, as them being a distraction from the fact that we are essentially peons. We have no real say in this grand
tribe.
Yeah,
right?
but if you think you have power in your small tribe, you're like, okay.
Right. You're kind of letting yourself be had.
Yeah.
And he also sees it as being a kind of like pressure release valve to his having these subgroups, because if we don't have somewhere we can feel a part of, or somewhere where we can kind of like compete among a smaller number of people, we're perhaps more likely to go mad.
Mm.
And he also talks about that too, about how violent modern societies are, and how we have a tendency to redirect our aggression towards other people for the state of affairs, the state of being lost in this super tribe. And that failing, we direct it against ourselves. And there's always, like he says, in societies where suicide is high, murder is low. Where societies where murder is high, suicide is low. And there seems to be a balance and an equilibrium where what really matters is the release of aggression. The release of aggression in one form or another, where there's going to be
whether you're going to hurt someone else or hurt yourself,
or hurt yourself. So.
God, this psychology is fucking fascinating, but also like the energy aspects of it. Because it's like there always has to be a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying that one goes up, the other goes down. Yeah. Like that balance has to still play there. It's fascinating, man.
Yeah, and I've just been devouring the book. I might finish it before the end of my vacation.
If it wasn't in French, I would take it from you next.
Well, you know what? I found a copy of it in English at the Cottage House book sale. I didn't buy it, but now I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, dude, grab it for me. I'll pay you back for it.
Gotcha.
This is how I get most of my books too, by the way. I don't know. I didn't start. I mean, literally, the first book that I really read was The Science of Yoga, and it was just a man that came in the bar and we were chatting, and he gave me the book. And then Randy and I started talking about like all kinds of everything under the sun. And then he just started like dumping books on me. Cause like I said, he's such an avid reader, but I've started reading the books that he's been giving me. And like, that's one of the ones that I do like 5 pages a day, but he gave me, it's Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah.
One of the most fascinating fucking books I ever read. I mean, if you don't know who Rudolf Steiner is, highly recommend going and checking this guy out. The stuff he was talking about in the like turn of the century, like 1900s, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when he like was alive, 18 something to 1910 or something like that was when he died. He was on another level. Like the amount of knowledge that this man put into his work and his books, like where did it go? You know what I mean? This is one reason I look at the world and I'm like, something is very bad wrong here, because there are a lot of really smart people that were alive at that time and were coming up with these amazing, they were studying the world in such a way that we don't do today. And this knowledge just, disappeared.
Yeah. And he was a person, I guess I also would qualify as a maybe not jack of all trades. He wasn't.
The fuck is that?
I think that car spit up a rock against the building.
Oh my God.
But he was someone who was interested in a lot of different fields, a lot of different domains, and
the amount of systems that this man created. Like he created the Waldorf Schools. I mean, he understood the body on a level, and not just the body, but the soul, how the human soul develops into the body, and like the different stages. That it's insane.
I think maybe everything that he ended up writing kind of emanated from that initial interest in the human soul, and the human spirit.
Yeah,
and how to care for it, how to develop it, and.
So it actually, a lot of the stuff he was writing about correlates with the Science of Yoga book that I'm reading again. Like I said, I only read books when they come back into my life. This book just happened back into my life. And I was like, well, since it's here, I guess I got to read it again. But after I read Steiner's book and now I'm reading this book, I see that he probably learned most of the stuff that he knew from ancient Indian philosophy. Because I mean, it's crazy how similar the things are they're saying. He's just putting it in a Western language.
Yeah, he seemed particularly interested in the major world religions, and I think there was a heavy influence from them on his own spirit science and his own approach. I mean, he was still, I think, fundamentally Christian.
Oh yeah, you're not a big fan of Steiner, are you?
No,
you weren't impressed with the book you read, right?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's just I don't always follow him where he goes, but I respect him.
Can you give me an example, or I mean, if you don't remember it?
Well, I guess when he talks about all the different bodies, like the ethereal body, and do you remember the other ones? Or,
the astral body, the ethereal body, and the physical body.
Yeah, because sometimes he would, these were like lectures that I read, but he would say that you would know this if you had studied spirit science, or like he would, instead of explaining or giving us, the reader or the listener, or what have you, a reason to like.
He just kind of belittles you about it. Yeah,
like any schooled avid,
and I find that a lot of people that
lettered in spirit science would know this.
Well, a lot of people that say things like that, they are they just assume that everyone's as smart as they are, and they don't know how to communicate well. And that's a big thing with like very intelligent people, is they can't communicate their ideas because they just assume that you already know the knowledge. But I mean, I wouldn't know that stuff either unless I'd read a lot of the stuff in the Hindu literature, the yogi stuff. But in there, they explain it a lot better. What they say is that there are subtle bodies, subtle forms of energy in the body. So, for instance, you're just a density of mass sitting in a chair right there, and a density of energy, which is forms mass when it's in a certain density, right? Okay, but if you can take your atoms and you can spread them out, so you're not just like dense material, then you will just be energy. So the farther you get away from the body, the more energy you are, essentially. So those are the subtle bodies they're talking about. So the astral body and the etheric body. But a lot of the stuff he says, he's talking about ways to activate the etheric body. Because one of the things he says is that whenever you go to sleep, you exit the body and you become the astral, right? It's where the consciousness goes back into the energy of that sun. And he says the only way that you can fully express the etheric body to be able to speak to the astral body whenever you're in the physical is to purify the body. And it's the same concept as the chakras, right? So you're purifying the body, you're purifying the mind, you're getting rid of all your traumas. And when you get rid of your traumas and you purify the body, then the energy can flow through the body, which allows you to essentially raise the energy level of the astral body to project the image back onto the etheric body. So it's like the in-between state. So physical body right here, astral body up here, etheric body is somewhere in here, but it's not aware because you haven't projected the image back onto it.
So at some point then, if I'm following correctly, and if you take enough care of yourself, if you're pure enough, you could essentially unite the three bodies
and become whole.
You could have access to all three, right? Okay.
And whole is holy. You become a holy individual, a whole individual. You reach a state of Christ consciousness.
Well, I can't argue against, trying to be in touch with all sides of yourself,
Yeah, why not, right?
Trying to have that at your fingertips at all time, to be your best self at all times.
Yeah.
And not just be an egghead, not just be purely intellectual of the body, but also be.
Or just thinking through the senses. That's another thing that they talk about, is how most people just have a sensory experience. That whenever they look at a rose, they visually see the colors of the rose, they smell the rose, but they don't actually know the rose. So in order to dive into what the rose really is, you have to hold it in your mind and then dive into the base of what the rose actually is. So you can go into the plant cells of the rose, and then you can go deeper than that and see the energy aspects of the rose.
And this is like a kind of meditation on a living thing, or on an object.
Yeah, this has more to do with the Science of Yoga book, but it's so crazy like how the two books cross-reference each other, and they're not related at all. He doesn't reference the book at all, but it's just the concepts they're talking about are extremely similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need to revisit Steiner. I think I needed to spend more time with him, especially as an educator. Him having started his own brand of schools,
Crazy.
a little bit I've read already
about him, about his philosophies in education, I found fascinating. So
Yeah, they are very fascinating. It's the Waldorf Schools, what it's called. I think there are a couple of those in Louisiana, aren't there?
there are.
Yeah, I think I looked a couple up. But so what did you? I didn't dive into the Waldorf Schools too much. I know there's a lady that lives where I live, and she was telling me about the eurythmia stuff that they do with the kids, which is like body movements, but it also correlates with the alphabet. So
Really?
so it's almost like when these kids are learning their alphabet, they're doing these body movements. So it's like their entire body becomes the alphabet. They're embodying the letters and stuff when they're saying them.
Yeah, so then it's not purely intellectual, the learning of the alphabet.
Right.
It's the whole body. Everything is engaged, body and mind.
So we're not just memorizing and regurgitating. We are actually learning. We're absorbing the information.
And there's a lot of modern pedagogy that tries in some form or another to employ that strategy of incorporating the whole body in activities, so that it's not just a sterile, I'm sitting and receiving, or I'm sitting and working, but I'm up engaging in a conversation, or I'm doing a group project, or I'm doing a gallery walk and examining documents. So
yeah,
I feel like a lot of modern pedagogy is try to incorporate others. I mean, they would say it's other styles of learning, but from a Steiner perspective, it's just a total engagement of the person in the learning. So
yeah, and another way they look at it is he talks about how the mind develops in a certain order. So you have to, and I don't understand his stuff that much because I haven't really dove into it that much, but I understand the base concepts of it. But he's saying that you have to stimulate the body first, and then I think you have to create the imagination. So you need to train the kids how to see these things in their minds. Because I think a lot of times the imagination gets ignored in our schools these days, and that's where art comes in. Because art is creating, it's imagining in your mind, and
I think that's where nourishing the soul comes in too.
Or that too, yeah. And we don't do that much.
No, because there's all these standards. There's all these
boxes to check off. I need to know this and this and this and this and this before the end of the year.
Yeah, so they're taking the creativity out of it, and they're just making you memorize and regurgitate. That way, whenever it comes to being an employee, you're a really good employee because you learn this system and you never get outside of the box. You just do this system over and over and over again.
You're the most obedient cog, and we're going to put your picture up.
Yeah.
Give you a gift certificate to Starbucks.
And that's probably why his educational system hasn't taken off, because he's actually making creative humans.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably making, the next wave of thinkers that will go into fields that demand creativity, right? Like engineering, architecture.
What's crazy is a lot of the millionaires and billionaires of the world send their kids to Waldorf schools.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Because the thing is, I don't know enough about Waldorf education to say this without possibly being incorrect here, but I think that with its emphasis on the student and all of the student, that this with my 5-6 years in education, I would say that anytime you can personalize education, it's going to be better. Anytime you can really teach to that student, you're going to do a world of difference, and you're going to give them what they really need when you teach to them. And it would be nice if the educational system was more built to have a certain amount of standards, right? Things everyone should know, but then also having, let's say, half the day or a fraction of the day where it's geared towards the instincts of the child, right? Mm-hmm. What they're interested in, and then helping them, helping them explore that helping them explore their natural inclinations. Yeah.
So one of the cool things about what Randy's saying right now is in the Waldorf education system, they have the same teacher throughout the lifetime of the education. So that allows the educator to really learn about the kid and learn what they need to get ahead, rather than every year having a new teacher that comes in and just gives you a curriculum.
See, that's amazing, because it takes so long to really know your students. Mm-hmm. You can spend all year and only at the very end kind of feel like you have a grip on.
Yeah, we have like 30 each class and 7 classes a day. That's a lot of fucking people to learn.
It's a lot of little personalities to know and styles to.
It's impossible, really.
It's not, I mean, to get it all down in a year, yeah, it's impossible. Yeah. But yeah, if you were to have the same body of students year after year, I can't even imagine how much less time would be lost, because you wouldn't have to learn your students. You wouldn't have to learn what makes them tick.
Yeah.
You would already have it. So I don't know. I guess just talking about this now, it's like, maybe I should send some job applications to Waldorf schools, but yeah, well, it also requires a particular training too. You can't just jump it right in there, because their style of educating is so different.
No, it's true. Like, you'll have to go to the place to train, but I mean, I think it's worth looking into. Like,
they have one in my hometown.
Yeah, you should definitely look into it.
They have a Great Lakes Waldorf training. So.
Another one of the things he teaches, they teach the kid how to grow food. They teach him how to live off the land, essentially. So where we are fully dependent on you going to the grocery store and getting our food, it's like, no, if you actually had to do it, you could grow your own food in that situation. Like, you don't have to grow your own food, but if you needed to, like a lot of us, I have my thumb is not green at all. Mm-hmm. Randy asked me to look after his cactuses when he was out of town one weekend. And I was like, bro, I'm probably going to kill your cactuses. And those are like the hardest fucking things ever to kill. But that's like how non-green my thumb is. It's because I've never well, one thing is because I'm so fucking spacey always. I don't even think about plants. They're just there. But another thing is I've just never been around them, Never.
I'm the same way when it comes to a child. If somebody's like, can you hold my baby? Do you want to hold my baby? You know, I would give them the same look as you would probably give me or gave me when I asked you to look after my plants. Like, yeah.
Well, see, I feel like I could
drop it. I might throw it.
I would just say no to the baby. Yeah. Like, I at least said yes to keeping your plants. I was like, I could probably keep these alive.
No ill will towards you, child. But,
no, I don't want your kid.
But if you're spiky and green and
yeah. Well, and you survive in the desert, I could probably keep you alive in a humid environment.
Yeah, those are the beyond cactus. I found my thumb is green, but it's not the greenest. I only have patience these days for plants that want to live. If a plant doesn't want to live, I don't go, oh shucks, I could have did this or I could have done that. I go, well, time to scoop out your pot and.
That's a good point, actually.
Make room for the next plant.
Like, how do I kill plants? Because they do. You would think they would want to live, right? They're pretty. I
mean, if they're that fussy, where I need fertilizer imported from Mars to keep them alive, and they need 5.43 hours a day of sunlight. If you're that picky, then
why would a plant?
We're not going to work out. I'm sorry.
Why would a plant need?
I don't need a high maintenance plant.
Why would a plant need special fertilizer and stuff? Because I mean, it's true that it is. You think there's something missing in the soil that?
Well, yeah. I mean, soil naturally gets depleted anyway. So you have, I do use some fertilizers, but if it's there's some plants that maybe the environment that they're natural to is so particular that unless you can recreate those conditions, they're going to die.
Yeah.
So.
No, they don't deserve to be here.
Well, yeah, they did. I mean, whatever.
This is hard.
To each their own. I've kind of found which plants I can get along with.
No, this is a hard city right here, baby. You either survive or you get lost.
But I am tempted to try my hand sooner than later at baby step agriculture. I
would love to have a garden. My parents have a garden every year, and the food is so tasty. It's so delicious. They grow. I think the last time I was in, they had cantaloupes, and I like cantaloupe, but these cantaloupes tasted so different than the ones we get that are grown, in a large setting or grown in bulk. I guess how would you call that? By big agriculture? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think when they grow them that big, they're either putting shit on them that shouldn't be there, or the soil's depleted. So they're not getting all the minerals and nutrients that you get from growing in a home garden.
You're right. yeah, maybe the land it's been grown on is like over cultivated essentially, and there's not going to the soil itself doesn't have many nutrients to maybe even produce a tomato or cucumber or whatever itself. So there's going to be very little nutrients in it. I can see that, but the little bit of like homegrown vegetables I've succeeded in growing, there's a certain, I don't know if satisfaction is the word, but just a kind of relishing in that food. Like you eat it differently because you grew it.
You made it. Yeah.
You made it. And so I don't know if it's pride or satisfaction or just like you recreate a connection that is normally broken, right, in modern society because we don't hunt and we don't grow anything. So, we don't, I don't know. We take all that for granted.
Now, anytime you put the work in, it's going to taste different. Success too. Like when you put the work in to get successful, it's going to taste different. If you have everything handed to you, then you're not going to appreciate it.
All right. It's easy come, easy go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something going down the road. I love New Orleans, but I'm looking to move sooner than later somewhere rural where I could actually have like a homestead. I could have a greenhouse, have space to grow and space to have some animals, chickens, and maybe goats to eventually do milk. I mean, little by little, mind you, not all at once, but.
No, I think that's a good way to be in the uncertain state of the world.
Yeah. I mean, now more than ever with inflation climbing, and there being, imports that I don't know that we don't have access to anymore. And
I feel like there's a solution to these problems, but the people that are in charge are either ignoring the fact that there are problems or they're just too dumb to be where they're at.
Yeah, I mean, we're essentially in a state of over dependency now. I was having this conversation with I don't know who the other day, but it boggles my mind. I mean, and here I could let out a string of curse words. It boggles my mind that we talk all the time about national security, and again, there's one of those things that I've heard since I was a young man, like the days of 9/11, national security this, national security that. But why doesn't this ever come up when we talk about, now the price of this is going to go up because we were getting it from this country and now they're not our friends anymore. So, when it comes to like raw materials, things that we could be producing and growing and building ourselves, how in the hell is that not an issue of national security when we're not growing enough, let's say, to feed, not growing enough wheat or corn or I don't know, what I mean? There's certain things I feel like every country should strive
to be self-sufficient.
Like I don't know, like an existential level, like you need to do this in case of, I don't know, in case of war, in case of in case of war, in case of a falling out with another country. Like there's certain things that every country should never give up producing, right?
Well, it's not mainstream because the people that handle foreign policy, it would make them look bad and they got to get reelected. I'm telling you, man, like that's the whole issue here is that the politicians aren't actually the ones that should be in those positions because they're not intelligent enough to handle the situation. They're strictly focused on making as much money as they can and just voting on things they get paid for. So they're not actually looking at the big picture of, oh shit, like we're fixing to create an issue with this country, which is going to, fuck something else up and it's going to affect the people. If they were actually doing what's right for the people, they would be working together with other countries instead of trying to go to war with them, like whatever their reasons are behind it. There's no reason for war. We are all intelligent enough now to be able to solve our problems with without fighting.
I mean, I agree. I wouldn't say there's never an occasion for war, but even just looking at the current conflict, to me, it we don't have to go down that road, but it seems to me like there was definitely a chance for diplomacy and cooler heads to prevail.
Yeah,
but it didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And now we're just in a state of like one-upmanship.
It's so stupid.
Things are escalating to the point where who knows? This could boil over into NATO countries and Europe. And
well, just the simple fact that our president gets on the TV and says, and inflates the situation rather than de-escalates it, where he's like, if he does this, we're going to do this. And then when he does that, then guess what? We have to do this because his ego is at play again. And he's like, oh, we're going to deal with him. It's like, why are you saying this shit? Why not just go, look, I'm going to go have a conversation with him. We're going to try to talk this out.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're past that point now. I don't think there is any more, at least between the U.S. and Russia. I don't think there is any more sitting down at the table.
Look,
negotiating.
I'm willing to negotiate with you, Putin. If you want to come and chat with me, we'll kick out the president and I'll take over from here.
Wouldn't that be nice? Right?
I don't know, man. I don't know if I could do the job either, but I know I could do better than this fucking idiot.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, only because I would tell the truth. That's where I think he's not even willing to tell the truth to himself that he's not qualified for the job. Like, I'm at least willing to say that, but I would, do my best.
I don't know. I just think our current commander in chief is quite literally it would be diagnosable that he's full blown senile.
Dude, it's the entire cabinet. I mean, look at what's going on with Pelosi. Was she like 95? I mean,
don't you think it'd be a good idea to have a conversation about maybe there should be a maximum age to.
That's not even a conversation. There should be a maximum age, and they should not be able to vote on their own salaries. And they should have them reduced as well. Like, there's no reason a politician should be making that much fucking money. Like, your job isn't that important. You think your job is important, so that's why you do stupid shit like you do. But there's no you should be just a common working man that gets 2 or 3 years in and then gets revolved back into the working system. That way you actually are affiliated with the people. Like, you shouldn't be a career politician. That makes no fucking sense. That's how the system gets corrupt, because when someone
gets bogged down, you're right.
Yeah, when someone's in the system for that long, they actually learn how to work the system. And that's where the everything started going wrong. Because when you learn how to work the system over, that's essentially hacking the system. So them being in there, career politicians, they've hacked the system.
Career hack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, there are in some positions term limits. There should also be a maximum age as there's a minimum age. And it would be nice to have more frequently, more fresh blood, more fresh ideas in politics. I mean, and that, I can't help, when talking about that, I can't help but thinking about the fact that we still have 2 major parties. And
yeah, I mean, there should be more parties. Dude, the solutions are out there, though. Here's the thing. The solutions are out there because for a problem to exist, the solution must exist in the law of duality that we have. Mm-hmm. It's just the fact that the solutions aren't getting to the surface. So if the solutions could get to the surface, then we could implement the solutions. But there are a lot of fucking really intelligent people out there that have already solved most of these problems. It's just they don't have a way to get them out there. A lot of really smart people, they're not good at following through with the ideas. They're good at coming up with the great ideas, but when it comes to actually implementing them, that's where you get the egomaniacs that come in. They're just like, we're gonna get it done. So I mean, I think you need a balance of both. But in the world we currently live in, there's no balance. You just have the egomaniacs that are going.
The narcissists, the egomaniacs, the greedy. Those always seem to be the ones that end up in positions of power. Dude, the bar is about to open. We've had a great conversation. But is there anything else you want to say to the people, or can they find you on social medias, or where's your writing and stuff at? Well, they can't find me anywhere. I have one book self-published, and I have.
Do you have a link on your? You don't have Instagram, do you?
No, I have a Substack, but I use my Substack right now to write under a pen name, and I'm not so keen on it.
Yeah, don't
releasing right now, so you can't find me unless you can figure out my.
And that's probably the best marketing you can do. Name. Yeah, now people are gonna go look for you. They're like, "Fuck, who is this guy?"
We can talk about all that another time. We can talk about the book project I've worked on. I'm not shy about that, but
yeah, dude, I'm definitely going to have you back on. Like, I really enjoyed both conversations that I had today. It was nice. But Randy, thank you for coming in, brother.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.